Hey everyone, this is Nate and this is the Nader Tater channel. Alright, if you have a T-Mobile home internet and you have this Arcadyan KVD21 gateway or the Nokia gray trash can, you might be interested in a external antenna. I've done a video on this 2x2 antenna from Waveform and I saw some good improvements there, but the question always comes back is, does a 4x4, which is MIMO, this is a 2x2 MIMO, this is a 4x4 MIMO, which basically means there's 4 antennas in here that work together to help get you more connections to the tower. Now, is this one going to be better? To be honest with you, I'm not sure, okay? If I look at the theoretical stuff, it should be 25 to 50% better than this one in the same location. So that's what we're going to do today, is find out if it truly tests out better. Now, I have the full kit here, which comes with this J-mount that you can put out there on the wall, a roof. It comes with this large MIMO one. The benefit of this panel versus the log periodic directional antenna, which are like the triangle ones, is this is already set up and configured as far as arrangement goes, and so it's kind of more plug and play. The log periodic directional antennas, they take some tuning work. So if you look at the manual that they give you in here, it goes through step by step of what you should do. But just to show you real fast, here's the back side of that big 4x4 panel. If you get a 4x4 of the log periodic, the angle and orientation and distance of these antennas, both vertically and horizontally, actually matters. So that makes them harder to mount and get set up. So that's what I really like about the single panel antenna. Now, what they tell you to do is obviously to test this out before you drill holes in your wall to place it. So they give you some instructions where you want to go to each side of your house and test it in all different directions. It's not always going to be at the top of the roof is your best, because you might need to use the house as a way to block some of the bad signal, maybe from other towers or other forms of interference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this 4x4 in the exact same place as this 2x2. I'll compare the speed there, and I'll also obviously compare it with it being stock. Now, if you haven't watched my channel, if you're not used to the Nader Tater lineup here, I do have a lot of things about this home internet. I have detailed instructions of how to take this apart and put the antenna leads on it. The kit comes with the leads that you need. So this is a U.FL connector that goes in here, and that converts it to a SMA connector, which is what is on the big cable that they give you. And obviously it's 4 connections to get to a 4x4, it's 2 connections to go to a 2x2. So we're going to go in here, I'll go into full details as far as how do you connect these. Does it matter which port you connect in here to which port on the antenna? And then ultimately see what kind of speed differences there are between a stock unit, 2x2, and 4x4 here. Now, if you want any of this stuff, you're thinking about buying it, you can get a discount code. It gets you 5% off from Waveform in the video description. And I have links to some other products, even if you don't want to buy the Waveform stuff. So be sure to check that in the video description below. And as always, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of content from Nader Tater. So let's start right now. Before I take this guy apart and put these antennas on it, let me go to a couple places and test it for signal metrics as well as speed. So let's go do that, and then we'll keep going. All right, so now I'm here in my really old office, and this is where I had my Nokia set up before and this Arcadyan for a while. What you'll see here is have a window outside. The tower is actually kind of catty corner out of that window. It's about a mile away from me. And this is how I have this Arcadyan set up, all stock in here. You will see I'm not using their Wi-Fi. I'm actually using Ethernet over to my phone. And that's because I use these going to my own mesh system. But that's actually probably going to be better from a speed standpoint than Wi-Fi anyways. So for this guy, let's go in here to the metrics by looking at the T-Mobile Home Internet app. We'll open that up here. Make sure that it's refreshed. And you can see here on my signal that I have a B2 band for my 4G signal, and then you can see that my RSRP is down at -106, and my signal to noise is about 9. So those are not great numbers, those are okay numbers. I think those are 2 bars is what they are for the LTE. And then the 5G, I actually have better signal on, but what you'll notice here is that it's N71 band. And the 2 main 5G bands that T-Mobile has is N71 and N41. N41 is the ultra capacity, whereas N71 is extended range. So this one's 600 megahertz, N41 is 2700 megahertz of frequency, and so the N41 is harder to get, especially down low if you're going through a lot of trees like I am. So I don't get N41 down here, which hurts my speed. Even though I get a good signal power on this N71, my speeds are not that great. So let me go and do a speed test here to see what it is with it set up. Again, this is all stock here, and this is fairly typical. Now, you guys that are experts at this know that your speed can vary a lot based off time of day, based off tower congestion, that kind of stuff. But this is fairly typical for what I see. I see like 60, 75 megabytes for download, and then I can see typically it's a little bit faster upload, but this Arcadyan seemed to be worse for me for uploading this spot for whatever reason. So I'm getting about 10. But the other important thing that you can see here that I really like that speed test app added is the loaded ping. So my unloaded ping is what they used to only show before, of 46 milliseconds. That's not that great. It's reasonable if you had the similar ping when it was loaded, but you can see I shoot up to a second or over a second for my loaded ping. So that is going to make your web browsing and latency on gaming and stuff really poor. And what I've noticed is that N41 is normally much better than that. So let's go and move this stock unit upstairs where I know it gets a better signal. Okay, so now I'm up in the kids' playroom. It's actually a 3rd floor loft, and over here I have my permanent setup with my Verizon home internet and my T-Mobile home internet, with a battery backup down there to keep those guys active. And then they're hardwired with Ethernet actually to go to my ASUS system. So up here's where I have it. My tower is over this way, so all the way through the attic. This is attic space here where I run the antenna at. But so up here I have the gateway, and I just did a speed test on it when it was on N71. So I brought it up here and it was still staying on N71. In fact, it still shows 3 bars. And I just got 59 and 17. So somewhat of an improvement up here. The latency also went down, which is good, but it's still very poor. And let's make sure that, like I said, that was when I was on N71. Let's see if it's still, nope. So right here, when it's right down here on the floor, I'm on N71. I don't get N41. But literally, if I move it up here in the air, it takes it a second. But this is basically, I'm the stock antennas, I can sometimes get N41, and sometimes I get N41. So I can kind of watch it. Sometimes it will change over here for me. Let me see if it'll do it. Alright, so I see 4 bars now. Sometimes that means it's going to change. No, it's just got better signal to noise. So it means a slightly better 4G signal, but 5G is certainly okay. There we go. So now I switched to N41 finally, and you can see the reason why it doesn't like to switch to N41 is my RSRP is worse. So remember with N71, it was like minus 80 something, 83, give or take. And that's a stronger signal on N71 than N41, but this N41 is going to be much faster. So let's switch to the speed test and see what happens I get when I'm on N41 now. Okay, so that is not a improvement that I wanted to have. I saw the upload got better, but download got worse. Double check to make sure I'm still on N41. Nope, it switched on me back to N71. So I'm gonna have to chase it and see if I can get it to stay on N41. All right, so I finally got N41 again. Let me go here to speed test real fast and see what I get. Hopefully it will stay. We should be able to tell because my speeds are normally much faster. Alright, so looks like it got onto N41, so now we're over 100. So, twice as fast as N71. Even though the signal in the bars are actually lower. I'm down at 3 bars instead of 4 bars on the front of it. But you can see, this is something I've seen before, my upload is actually worse on N41. And that's because of the type of protocol that it does, that for N41 it has to basically decide and send packets and for upload and download, and so they normally favor download over upload. I won't get into the technical details, but N71 is better at leveraging like the 4G base for the upload. All right. So you can see it was better. My pings are still bad, and my upload is actually worse. So for this one, I would trade download to get upload on N41. But now let's see what happens when we plug in the antenna. All right, so I have a full detailed video that goes through this, but I'm just gonna pop this open real fast, and we'll put these antennas on there. So pulling off the front, pulling off the back, you can see the stock antennas here. This D, M2, M, and M1. And so these all go into here. And there's also 2 extra ports that are actually empty, labeled 4 and 5 up here at the top. But we're not going to mess with those. Alright, so I'm going to do the 2x2 antenna first. So for that one, I'm going to do this M and D. And then I'll also try M and M1. Now you do got to be real careful with these things. You can bend them very easily. But so what I've done is I'll use a screwdriver to go in here very carefully and try to pry it up. You don't want to bend it off. You want to try to pick it up vertically as best you can. So they come off there. So that's M and D. And now I'll get the cable out and plug that up. Alright, so here are 2 of the pigtails. That's all I need for now. I'm going to leave the rest of them obviously installed with the stock one, since I'm going to test out 2x2 first before I go and put the 4x4 on there. So again, just line these guys up, and for putting them on, I like to try to use my finger the best I can. If I can't get my finger in there, I'll use the screwdriver, but I'll make sure to use the flat part of the screwdriver to press down flat, kind of like this, if I can, so that I'm not stabbing the cable or something to pinch it. So you can route it in there where you need it, and then use the flat portion once you get it centered up real good. And you shouldn't have to force it, so it's more about lining it up in the right angle, and you'll feel it snap on, and it'll be snug where it doesn't turn. So now we got to do the D. D is easier because it's just right in here. You can get your finger in there. It's just a little bit hard to see sometimes. Alright, so that one got clipped on too. So now the 2 stock ones are unplugged. We will kick this guy back up here and plug it in. Okay, so this guy's starting up. This is the cable. Now luckily these things are numbered. It's a little bit small, They're numbered 1, 2, 3, so I know, which two to hook up and what's the corresponding ones that go to the antenna. So let me run this out into the attic, and then I will hook it up to here. That way I'm not pulling on the gateway at all. Alright, so here's my original 2x2 spot. Alright, so there is the 2x2. I kind of know which way was best to face it based off my previous testing. So that's where I'm going to put it, and I'm going to hook up the leads. Alright, so for reference, you can see here, that's the 2x2 cable. This is 4x4. This is certainly a much bigger cable. I mean, it's just 4 of those put together. But that is something to consider. If you have a tight space you want to get through, you might actually want to consider getting 2 of the 2x2 cables instead of this one bigger one, depending on how you're routing it. Alright, so for this temporary installation, I'm just going in through this attic door here to do this testing. So now let's hook up 1 and 2 from here over to this gateway. Okay, so now you can see right away I got on to N41 and I'm at -114. My LTE dropped, which means it's a better signal there. Alright, so here's the previous speed test with N41 without the antennas. That's just stock. So let's go and run it now with this antenna hooked up. Okay, so it's about, on this one, it's about a 20% improvement there in download. And let's see what our upload does here. Okay, again, about a 20% on both of those with the 2x2. And again, the key thing here is that we also we did lower our loaded ping on both of those, as well as the jitter, actually, I believe. And this is with 1 is hooked to the M and the 2 is hooked to the D antenna. Alright, so now it's time to put this 4x4 on here. Alright, so I made it just tight enough where it stays put, but I can actually rotate it, and I'll try to tune it in slightly, but I basically have it in a very similar position as the 2x2 was, and I'm assuming that's going to be the best course of action for this one as well, but we'll make sure. Alright, so what you'll see here is these guys have labels of +45 and -45. So that's how these antennas inside here are arranged. And this does matter. So I'm going to hook up +45, -45, +45, -45 as 1, 2, 3, and 4 number cables, so I can keep track of it when I hook it up to the gateway itself. Alright, so let's go check the signal, and then I will adjust it if needed. Alright, so I had one of my viewers actually reach out to me. I've talked to him before, and I've also talked to Waveform directly as far as what order to put these in. And, the feedback is that people are seeing some differences here. So I'm going to test it out a little bit, and I'm going to do 1 is to D. So that should be this guy. And then 2 is going to be to M, which is down here. And then we have M1, and we got 3 that goes to M1. Alright, and then 4 goes to M2. Alright, so I've messed with these guys a lot, and this is kind of what I have settled on. And it's the original going from left side to right side of the antenna, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to D, M, M1, M2. And then I have ports 4 and 5, which were unused from the factory, also unused. Using those does not seem to help much. If I look at my metrics here,
we'll see that I have a B2 signal down in the 80s now, which is good, and a signal to noise up to almost 19, so that's really good. And then over here in N41, similar type stuff, where I see a signal to noise up at 18, and my RSRP down to minus 100. So that is my best signal metrics by far for what I've gotten of all the setups, 2x2, 4x4, stock, whatever. This 4x4 is doing the best there with the metrics. So let's go here and do a speed test, which obviously is probably one of the most important thing for us. And the key thing here, you can see that unloaded ping is down in the 20s now, so that's a vast improvement that I'm seeing there. And then I'm seeing the speed. It's actually a little bit slower than it has been just a few seconds ago when I've been running it. So 130 range, and then you'll see my upload is also significantly higher now. I'm able to get upper teens to the 20 range, and all these numbers really are lower than I typically get. I've gotten up to 370 megabits per second download here in the past. So this is more what I was seeing a little bit before. I was seeing the mid to 130s, and then upload, we'll see where it ends up here. But so consistently much quicker unloaded ping. My loaded ping is still nothing to rave about, being around a half second there, but this 4x4 is certainly improving my speed versus the 2x2 and versus the stock one. The other big difference between the 4x4 and the 2x2 is the 4x4 now doesn't matter what position or location your gateway is in, because all of the antennas are now out at your antenna. With a 2x2, it still matters how your gateway is located in your house, and even the orientation still. So this takes away all of that variability, and everything's based off that one external antenna. So now I need to do a little bit of summary here for you guys, but so far this 4x4 certainly does show a improvement. It's not a crazy improvement, but what it really gives me is a more consistent speed, and it gets a better cell metrics, so that if I had better tower speeds, which right now for some reason my tower is being slow, then the difference I think would even be greater, because those cell metrics really are a good indicator of how your potential speed could be.
Alright, so what you can see is, I have different speeds. Now, I mentioned them before, but I typically get better speeds than this with the T-Mobile home internet. I'm actually using Verizon most of the time as my primary WAN, but that's because T-Mobile has more variation, and right now I think they have something going on in much of Michigan actually that's slowing things down. But this test is still valid because it's showing you in the exact same conditions as far as the T-Mobile network goes what type of speed difference you can see. And you can see that when I was in the office with the stock Arcadyan, I got about, it was 59 for download, 10 megabits per second upload, and then the ping was 45 unloaded, and then 920 loaded for download, and 1274 for upload. Once I moved the stock unit up to the third floor, I switched from the N71 extended 5G band and I got to the N41. So that bumped up my speed significantly. I was getting 97 megabits per second down, 9 up, and then my pings were 37, 1224, and 810. So all of the numbers improved there, I guess, other than the loaded download ping. That one actually went slightly, or that one went up some. And then once I was up there, I added the 2x2 antenna to the stock gateway, and I put those on the M and the D ports, which got me the fastest speed there. And so that bumped me up to 123 megabits per second down, 13 up, and my ping unloaded stayed about the same, but my loaded pings got significantly better than the stock unit. So that shows you that the stock unit stayed in the same place, and I just added an external antenna, and that drastically improved my performance both from a speed standpoint and a ping standpoint. Alright, so now for the 4x4 edition, I left the gateway itself in the same place, but now I put a 4x4 in place of that 2x2, and that got me a improvement of about 10% on the download, but I got more like 30 or plus percent on the upload. And then the other big thing is my ping got significantly quicker, especially my unloaded ping. It got cut in half basically. Now I was at 20. Some of my tests I was even getting like 18 milliseconds of ping. So it really did help the signal to noise on the metrics, and that's one of the things that drove that better ping. And that includes for loaded ping that got me down in some better numbers there. Now obviously that was incremental, and I know from my past testing for the amount of signal to noise improvement that I got on the 4x4, I typically would have seen even a greater speed difference, but I think I'm running up against some limitations on that tower right now. I've gotten over 300 megabits per second download on this same tower, so I'm not sure what's going on. But what this shows me is that the 4x4 does help. It does not make you go from bad to amazing. If you're bad on a 2x2, it's not going to be earth shattering on the 4x4, but it certainly does improve it and get you ever closer to the ultimate goal of the fastest you can get at your location. Now I do want to do some more testing here. I ran out of time. I can only fit so much in any video. So some of my future testing, I'm sure people are interested in the Nokia gateway of how does this 4x4 help with that. So I will do a video on the Nokia in the future. The other thing I want to do is I really want to spend the time. It's harder for me to install, but I want to look at the antenna getting outside. So I have it in the attic. That is not the best place. It still has to go through the OSB sheathing and the shingles. So I'm getting some signal loss doing that way. And I have a antenna mast out there that I can put this on. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to test and say, hey, how much am I giving up by having the antenna in the attic versus having it truly outside? So that's some future tests that I'll be doing, so stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching. Give me that thumbs up, like down below, as well as subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you get notified in the future. If you have any questions, which I'm sure you do, or comments, go for it. Put in the comments down below. Certainly I will say this is not fully scientific. Ideally, I would have a running average of all these things. All these tests and these cell metrics, they flip around plus or minus, and so that's where you need to see a significant difference there before I would claim is truly better or worse. But between these four segments, I saw a very clear difference. I did run a couple tests multiple times to kind of make sure I saw a little bit of a trend, but just to try to help keep the video shorter, I went ahead and just showed one test to help keep it clear and concise. So thanks and take care.